Well, I'm glad I caught you in between lectures. I'm sure you're doing a fantastic job down there, far better than I would be anyway. So please give all my regards to everybody at King's College.
I will certainly do that. You're on a speakerphone right now, so they can all hear you, actually. I should have told you that from the start.
Bye, Tim.
Hello, everybody at King's College London, and it's great to be talking to you this morning. I know Casey will be delivering these fantastic lectures that he does every year, so enjoy them, soak them up, and if anyone's got any questions they want to ask right now, then I'm happy. I can talk to you guys for a few minutes if you like.
Okay, thank you, Tim. I appreciate that.
Tim, it's Mike Shattuck here. Hi, Tim. Can you hear me, Tim? Hello, Tim. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Hi, Tim. It's Mike Shattuck. Tim, just thanks for joining us. Your first slide's up, so if you could start your presentation now, that would be great. No, Tim, I wanted to ask.
No problem at all.
I wanted to ask you, Tim, what physiologically, the first 24 hours, what was that like for you?
Yeah, the first 24 hours was the most interesting, and I'm sure from your point of view it was interesting. From my point of view, it was pretty awful. No, I think that's when the majority of the changes occur in the body. And in the Soyuz, I felt absolutely great, and I was moving around, got changed into the flight suit, and then we moved from the sort of small volume of the Soyuz into the larger volume of the space station, and it's just very disorientating. Every time you turn a corner or turn your body in a different orientation, of course your vestibular system is still giving all these signals to the brain. It's in zero gravity, so it's getting tilted at strange angles. Your eyes are trying to tell your brain which way is up, and those mixed signals just make it feel very dizzy and very disorientating. So the first 24 hours is a bit rough, occasionally feeling nauseous, not all the time, and actually the nausea is not really bad. It's not a debilitating illness, or sort of a debilitating feeling. But honestly, after the second night's sleep, I woke up and it was just like a switch in my brain had flicked, and from that moment onwards, I have had no problems with any orientation, no disorientation at all, no dizziness, and it was almost as if my vestibular system just shut down and the brain said, okay, I'm taking eyes only, that's going to be my reference point.
Brilliant, thanks Tim, that's really good. Guys, anybody got a question for Tim? If you have, come up and talk to Tim. Tim, what was it like setting foot out of the hatch and your first spacewalk? That must have been awesome.
That was absolutely incredible. Yeah, the best feeling in the world. And the funny thing was, actually, the best moment was when the hatch opened, when Tim opened the hatch and the daylight just flooded into the airlock, and I was able to kind of look down and see planet Earth through the hatch, and at that moment I just instantly relaxed, and I just wanted to get out the door as quickly as possible and get on with the job. So no, it was a wonderful feeling, and on spacewalks normally you're working extremely hard all the time trying to get as much done as possible. But with this particular spacewalk, because we had to wait until sunset before we could change out the SSU, we were told, we were out at the edge of the space station, and we were told we had 15 minutes to wait to sunset, so just hang out there and take pictures. And that's almost unheard of, to have 15 minutes of just free time during a spacewalk to soak up the view and to be able to take photos. So that was absolutely breathtaking.
Fantastic, thanks Tim. We've got a question for you.
Hi Tim, pleasure to talk to you. I was just wondering, could you describe the view from space of planet Earth?
Yeah, it's difficult. It changes all the time, and you get a different perspective from which window you look down from. Looking down from the lab window, it's a really nice clear window, so it's great for photography of cities and landmarks. But you got it's a smaller window, so you get this small view of just the local area flying over. But go to the cupola, and you just get this wonderful 360 view of planet Earth, and it's just the most magnificent view you can imagine, especially on night passes when we get the aurora, for example.
Thank you. Thanks for your answer.
Hi Tim, this is Lucas. Thanks for calling. Obviously, you had a lot of training. Was there anything that you weren't prepared for?
What wasn't I prepared for? You know, I think really the only thing, because the training is so good, and I can't sort of reinforce that statement enough, the training is incredible, but what they don't really train you for, they can't train you for, are just the noises, the sensations, the feelings. For example, the Soyuz rocket ride was just incredible, but
Yeah.
it was the although the centrifuge does give you that feeling of acceleration, it's the fact that, you know, when you're sitting on top of the rocket and all the pumps are kicking in and the cryogenic fuel is being pressurized, and you can feel the vibrations through the rocket when the first stage boosters separate. You know, that's quite a lively event, and then every stage separation is quite lively, and then that final third stage separation, injection into orbit, you get a big deceleration, and it's all of these kind of sights and senses and feelings that the training really can't prepare you for, that give you the wonderful experience that it is.
Wow, thank you. We will be having the opportunity to go into a centrifuge ourselves. Would you have any tips for us?
You know, the centrifuge is great fun. Don't be apprehensive or nervous about it at all. It doesn't make you feel sick. It's just it's a fun experience. And you know, we were taught how to breathe properly, and you do need to pay attention to the training, because at 8 Gs it is really hard to breathe. But do enjoy it.
Thank you very much, Tim.
Hi Tim.
You're welcome. Great talking to you.
I know it must seem like ages ago, but for you, what was the most memorable part of the 14-month selection process?
Gosh, the selection process, I think. Well, the most memorable, actually, from a sort of sociable point of view, was the medical week, because really there's nothing you can do. You're just there to hand over your body and to hope that you are physically fit for spaceflight. So actually it's a kind of more relaxing phase of the selection, and it's also a chance at that time there were only 44 people left in the selection process, so it's a chance to really get to know people well and to enjoy yourself. So that was a fun week. But I think really the most daunting phase was probably the interview round that followed on after the medical selection, and that's when we were interviewed by a large panel of about 10 ESA employees. Obviously the Director of Human Spaceflight included in that. So yeah, that was kind of the high pressure moment.
Great, thank you.
Hi Tim, I was just wondering, how did you feel that your military background prepared you for life as an astronaut?
Yeah, you know, but I think my military background did a wonderful job in preparing me. There are so many similarities to the job I'm doing now as to what I was doing when I was a test pilot. You know, every day up here on the space station, we're working with new pieces of equipment that need trialing, they need testing, they need modification, improvement. We need to be able to communicate that and articulate those issues, those problems back to ground. You constantly need to be working effectively, efficiently, communicating, and all these skills I picked up as you know, in my military background. Having said that, of course, people from all different professions pick up the same skills doing their job. So it just goes to reinforce really that you know, it doesn't really matter what background you come from, as long as you've got a certain skill set with you, then you can become an astronaut, and you can bring a lot to the table with the various experiences that you pick up during your life.
Cool, thank you very much.
Hi Tim, kind of following on from that question, I'm lucky enough to do a bit of flying with the Air Force, and I was just wondering how different it is to flying and being up there, because obviously you've got all the G-forces and stuff, but if there's anything that's very different from that?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's very interesting because, you know, we're traveling a lot faster, but things happen a lot slower. Because, you know, generally speaking, up here, you've got time to talk about your decisions. You'll often consult with the ground. You might make a phone call to the flight director to discuss something. And even in emergency situations, there are only one or two things that are time critical, and then the rest of the emergency actually occurs in relatively slow time as well. So it's very different to aviation, where, you know, in aviation often you're completely responsible for your own actions, and you have to implement those actions in a lot more timely manner. So I think that's the big difference, is up here it's a huge team effort when anything goes wrong.
Okay, and I'm going to be really cheeky and ask one more question. I'm following you on Facebook, I'm loving your videos, and I was wondering, are you going to be putting up any videos that are more specifically physiological? Because so far they've been more general population, so especially love the one about going to the toilet. But I was just wondering if you were going to post up any more scientific ones.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, there's a whole host of educational videos that is on my task list. The task list is kind of my Saturday afternoon job list that I have to get done. And obviously in the first month up here, we've been focusing on 2 spacewalks and unpacking the Cygnus cargo vehicle that's attached to the space station at the moment. And in the next 4 to 5 weeks, things are going to quieten down a little bit for us on the space station. So I'm going to be ticking off a lot of those educational programs and getting some more of those videos done.
Brilliant, thank you.
One last question then.
You're welcome.
Hi Tim, my name's Daniel. It's a real pleasure to get to ask you a question whilst you're in space. My question just touches on a little, well, you just touched on a little bit of what my question is about, and I just wanted to ask what a day for Tim Peake in space is like. What do you have any routines or challenges that you have day by day?
Yeah, that's a great question, Daniel. The daily challenge is keeping ahead of the big red line. And the big red line, that we have a schedule and we have activities that we have to do. And of course, the red line is the timeline. And if you slip behind the timeline, then obviously things get bad and your time gets compressed. But no 2 days are really the same, because you're constantly doing different tasks. What we'll typically do is we'll have an overview of the week, and we'll look at the big picture items that come up. For example, yesterday there was a big experiment called airway monitoring that took about 4 hours to set up the previous day. Then it was about 2 hours of execution yesterday and 2 hours of breaking down today. But in and amongst these big picture activities, we have hundreds of smaller tasks that we have to do. This morning, for example, I was doing ultrasound of my cardiovascular system and my eye for various physiological experiments. And this afternoon, I'm going to be deploying 2 satellites into the Japanese airlock. So you bounce around from these activities, all of which are incredibly exciting and interesting. But you're really doing a whole variety of different tasks throughout your day.
That's absolutely fascinating. Thank you for that.
Hi Tim, it's just James here. I just thought I'd finish off the questions with a cheeky one for myself. I know you were a very busy chap when you were back on Earth, and you had a lot of hobbies, you had a lot of things you did at weekends. What does Tim Peake do for leisure activities on the space station?
Hi James. Well, during the week we don't have to worry about that, because we work pretty much. We get up at about 6:30, and we're working through from 7 till about 8 o'clock at night, and then we're preparing for the following day. So it's really, by the time you've had your evening meal and sorted your daily emails, then it's time to go to bed. But at the weekends we do get a bit of time to ourselves, and really that's nice to be able to catch up. I spend most of my time so far either calling people, taking photographs from the cupola, making the odd educational video or PR video, things like that. And of course we try and socialise at the weekends as well, so we get together with our Russian colleagues and share meals.
Wonderful, thanks a lot Tim. I'll hand you back to Casey.
Okay, great speaking to you all. Thanks very much.
Well, Tim, I don't know how I'm going to follow you up on this.
He's going to give you a lecture,
Sure,
Tim.
no problem. Well, listen, good luck with the rest of your lecture, Casey.
Thank you very much.
Great talking to you.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you very much for calling.
Thanks
Bye-bye.
Tim.
Bye.
Bye.
You're welcome. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.
Sorry for the interruption.
Yeah.